Milk Minute!
Hi everyone! As a person who loves cooking, it is my joy and consolation when people appreciate the food I prepare for them. Meat dishes are the ones I like to prepare the most, especially during parties and events. Not only that it is everyone's favorite, but also because of the freedom it gives in making twists and personal flavors when preparing it. And since meat is part of our diet, it is important to know different healthy dishes that we can do out of this without risking our health. That is why we need to listen and learn from the episode that will tackle preparation of meat dishes. Thank you and good day.
Senior High School on Air.
Senior High School on Air. The front line of quality and excellent learning.
Excellent learning. You have all the best of the best.
Best of the best of the best.
Magandang umaga, handa na ba kayong matuto?
Handa na po.
Reading and writing.
Pagbasa at pagsusuri ng teksto tungo sa pananaliksik.
Practical research 1.
English for academic and professional purposes.
Ability and statistics.
General Biology 2.
Disciplines and ideas in applied social sciences.
Cookery and more.
Senior High School, best of the best.
Best of the best of the best.
Good day, dear senior high school learners! How are you today? I hope everyone is safe and enjoying listening to Radyo Eskwela sa Isabela. Anyway, I am Teacher Kathleen, your teacher for today's session. I believe you have already your pen, notebook, and your learning activity sheet in Cookery with you. I guess you are all ready and excited. So, let's start. It's great to know that you're ready, but let's try to review first your lesson last time. During the last episode, you have learned and identified the market forms and cuts of meat. You have learned that meat is an important part of many people's diets. It is also an essential part of most food service establishment menu offering. Tender cuts are the most expensive cuts of meat, containing lean meat and little collagen. We also learned that less tender cuts contain higher quantities of connective tissues, whereas tough cuts contain more developed tissues, usually ground to break and cut the muscle fibers and connective tissue. Aside from knowing these market forms, we also identify the different cuts of meat. The following are cuts of meat for beef. We have the chunk, sirloin, rib, tenderloin, shank, short loin, round, top sirloin, bottom sirloin, brisket, and plate. For the pork, we have identified the leg, arm, loin, side, spare rib, head, arm shoulder, and blade shoulder. Wow! It's interesting, right? But more than that, you have also learned the steps in cleaning and sanitizing of tools and equipment in preparing meat cuts according to the given recipe. And I hope that you have applied these already for a self-check. Last episode, you were also given a quiz which will be checked today. So, prepare your quiz pads and together, we will check your answers. But always remember to be honest when checking. For activity number 1, item number 1, the correct answer is true. Number 2, the answer is false. Again, number 2 is false. For number 3, it's true. 3 is true. For number 4, the answer is false. Again, false. Let's proceed to number 5. The answer is true. 5 is true. We're halfway through. How's your score?
Alright!
Let's continue answering activity 2. The answer for item number 1 is letter C. Number 1, it's C. Number 2 is A. I'll repeat. The answer for number 2 is A. Moving on to number 3. The answer is letter E. Number 3 is E. For number 4 is letter D. Number 4 is D. And we're down to the last item. We'll see whether you'll get a perfect score. Item number 5 is letter B. Again, the answer for number 5 is B. May I know who got a perfect or high score? I'm glad that you did well. And for those who didn't make it, you still have today to improve. You just need to listen very well. Now we're done with the review and the checking of your previous quiz. So I guess we're ready to discuss our lesson for today. But wait a minute. I want you to relax first and learn from this infomercial.
Wow! Adobong manok! Ang sarap naman ng ulam namin! Ang bango pa! Kainan na!
Hep hep hep! Buknoy, may nakalimutan ka ata.
Ha? Wala kuya! Gutom na po ako kaya kumain na po tayo.
Buknoy, nakalimutan mong maghugas ng kamay. Lagi mong tatandaan, bago kumain, ugaliin nating maghugas ng kamay. Ang wastong paghuhugas ng kamay ay isang epektibong paraan upang matanggal ang bakterya at germs na lumikit sa ating mga kamay. Ito ay makatutulong upang maiwasan natin ang pagkalat ng sakit sa ating paligid.
Sige po kuya, uugaliin ko na po ang wastong paghuhugas ng aking kamay bago kumain. Kainan na!
Ang kalusugan ay kayamanan. Isang paalala mula sa kagawaran ng edukasyon at ng himpilang ito.
And we're back! With me, Teacher Catherine. Before refrigeration existed, marinades were relied upon to preserve fish, meats, and other food for a long period of time. Nowadays, however, marinades are used primarily to add flavor to food. It may surprise you at just how many different cultures use marinating to add interesting layers of flavor to food. In today's lesson, you are expected to prepare and use suitable marinades for a variety of meat cuts.
Alright!
Do you know the importance of marinades? That's interesting! Good marinade will add flavor to your favorite meat and make it more tender and juicier. Making a marinade is very simple. All you need are 3 basic components. The first is an acid, such as lemon juice, vinegar, yogurt, or wine. The acid is important as it breaks down the meat and tenderizes it. The second is the oil. This protects and preserves the food while being marinated and also when it's being cooked. Third is any herb and spice. This is what gives a marinade its unique flavor and zest. Do you know the difference between marinade and marinate? Great! A marinade is sauce in which food is soaked before cooking. To marinate is the corresponding verb. It means to soak food in a marinade. Here are some general guidelines in marinating. First, meat and poultry are generally marinated for 2 hours up to 2 days. Second, seafood and fish should be marinated for no longer than 1 hour. Third, use a non-reactive container. Steer clear of aluminum, copper, or cast iron. Fourth, wait for your marinade to cool down before pouring over the meat of your choice. Fifth, always refrigerate your meat while it's marinating. And lastly, never reuse marinades. And this time, let us learn the steps to ensure the most possible flavor and juiciness from marinated meats. Number 1. Use lots of flavorings and seasonings. Do you know that in tests, we found that a high concentration of salt in a marinade can inhibit meat from absorbing the flavors of other ingredients unless they are included in copious quantities. Example, 3 or 4 cloves of garlic and at least a tablespoon of chopped herbs. Number 2. Score meat before marinating to help the marinade penetrate as deeply as possible, especially thicker cuts like flank steak. Prick the surface of the meat with a fork or score it with a knife. Number 3. Flip and stir. This is done by placing meat in a zipper lock bag with the air squeezed out, or use large baking dish covered with plastic wrap. Number 4. Refrigerate while marinating. This is done to eliminate the risk of microorganisms spreading in a raw meat. Don't leave meat on the counter. Refrigerate it. This keeps it out of the temperature danger zone of 40 to 140 degrees, within which bacteria spread rapidly. Number 5. Remove marinade before cooking. This is to prevent flare-ups on the grill and ensure properly browned meat when sautéing or stir-frying. Wipe off most of the excess marinade before cooking. Keep just a little marinade on the meat surface to maximize flavor. Number 6. Don't recycle used marinade. Used marinade is contaminated with raw meat juice and is therefore unsafe. If you want sauce to serve with the cooked meat, just make a little extra marinade and set it aside before adding the bulk of the marinade to the raw meat. This time, let us talk about the different types of marinades and find out how to use them. We have first the acidic marinades. Wine, vinegar, tomato, and citrus juice are all considered acidic marinades. The acid in these liquids work to loosen the protein bonds in the meat, making the meat more tender so that these juices can be absorbed. Second is the dairy marinades. Although you may find this marinade unappealing, many chefs and grilling experts believe this is only proper way to go about marinating meat. The calcium in the dairy works to age the meat by activating its enzymes, making the meat tender. Try using buttermilk or yogurt, which is also acidic. Third, the enzyme marinades. Using kiwi, papaya, pineapple, and other fruits can contain papain or bromelain for perfect marinades. These proteins break down to the meat to make it more tender. Keep in mind that using this type of marinade may make your meat dry and tough if left to marinate too long. And now, let us familiarize ourselves with the difference between wet and dry marinating. Wet marinating involves covering the meat with a liquid in order to tenderize it and prevent it from going bad. Wet marinating should only be done for a short period of time. It should always be left to marinate in the fridge. Remember, never use salt in a wet marinade, as this can end up sucking the natural juices out of the cut of meat you just purchased. Dry marinades, also known as dry rubs or barbecue spice, are a great opportunity to pack even more flavor. Using dry herbs and a variety of spices, the main ingredient in a dry marinade is salt. The salt in a dry rub works to break down the protein of the meat so that the other flavors can be absorbed. To dry, rub a piece of meat. It's important to first coat it with lard, oil, or water and be pressed on the surface. Not a fan of wet marinating or dry rubs? Wet rubs are also an option for those who love to barbecue. Wet rubs are paste and the goal is to completely coat the meat with a mixture of spices and herbs so that it creates a thin layer of flavor before cooking. Do you want to know more about marinades, especially its kinds? Yay! Wow, that's interesting. I bet after the lesson you are ready to pick your favorite. There are 8 kinds of marinades. First on the list is the pineapple marinade. This sweet, fruity marinade works great on any cut of pork or chicken. What you get with this marinade is a great Hawaiian teriyaki flavor. Try this marinade when you are simply placing out strips of pork or chicken over rice. You can make extra marinade to use as a sauce as long as you keep it separate from the meat. Next is the pork chop marinade. This is great Asian style marinade that works well on all cuts of pork, particularly pork chops, reminiscent of a teriyaki marinade with a hint of heat from the chili sauce. You can, if you like, hit this up with some extra chili sauce or perhaps a pinch of cayenne. Third kind is the Jamaican jerk marinade. You've heard of jerk seasonings and jerk rub. Well, this is a jerk marinade that gets the jerk flavor deep into the meat. You can use this marinade on all kinds of meat and poultry. The fourth kind is the pork rib marinade. Barbecue Guru posted this marinade recipe to the forum. It uses a pork rub for the seasoning with vinegar and water to turn it into marinade. Next is the teriyaki marinade. Want to get that great teriyaki flavor onto your favorite dish? Wow, that sounds amazing! Like me, I want it too! Alright! This marinade will surely add flavor to whatever you're grilling. This marinade works particularly well with pork and poultry. Next kind is the pork chop and tenderloin marinade. Doug Freeman sent in this marinade recipe for grilled pork. You may leave out the liquid smoke if you are so inclined. Next is the bourbon marinade. This is great, sweet bourbon marinade that works perfectly on any food. This is a mild marinade, so you will want several hours marinating time with it before you grill. The last kind is the mustard vinegar marinade. This is a simple mustard marinade that tenderizes and adds flavor. It works well on pork or poultry. Wow, that was a jam-packed information, right? Yay! To summarize, can you give me the different types of marinades? Very good. First, we have the acidic marinades. Next is the dairy marinades. And lastly, we have the enzyme marinades. Aside from the different types of marinades, we also learned its kinds. Number 1 is the pineapple marinade. Next is the pork chop marinade. We also have the Jamaican jerk marinade, pork rib marinade, the teriyaki marinade, the pork chop and tenderloin marinade. Next is the bourbon marinade, and lastly, we have the mustard vinegar marinade. And it's totally cool, right? But it would be cooler if knowing that you have understood our discussion for today. To check on that, we'll have a quiz after this infomercial.
Mari, narinig mo na ba ang tungkol sa online distance learning ng DepEd? Ano ba ito? Ay oo, Mare. Ang online distance learning ay isang pamamaraan kung saan maihahatid ng mga guro ang kaalaman para sa mga anak natin sa tulong ng teknolohiya gaya ng internet, laptop, computer, at cellphone. Ganun ba, Mare? Oo, Mare. Hindi magkakasama at magkakaharap ang mga estudyante at mga guro. Maaaring matuto ang mga bata sa pamamagitan ng online na pagkatuto. Isang mensahe mula sa kagawaran ng edukasyon at ng himpilang ito.
All right, this time we will now have your quiz. Listen carefully. I will give you statements about our lesson and you will answer if it is true or false. You write true if the statement is correct and false if it is incorrect. Write your answer on your quiz pad. Remember to be honest because God is watching you. For number 1, to help the marinade penetrate as deeply as possible, prick the surface of the meat with a fork or score it with a knife. True or false? Number 2. Meat are generally marinated for 2 hours up to 2 days. Is it true or false? Write your answer now. Number 3. Seafood and fish should be marinated for at least a day. Is it true or false? Number 4. It is not advisable to use a non-reactive container. Steer clear of aluminum, copper, or cast iron. Is it true or false? And for number 5, always refrigerate your meat while it's marinating. Is it true or false? You may now start writing your answer. That's it for your quiz. I hope you did well on that. We'll check that next episode, so keep your quiz pad. Everybody loves meat. That is given. And the reason behind it is because of the marinade put in that meat. For your additional activity to be checked next episode, I would like you to share your favorite to-go-to version of marinade recipe. You may ask your parents or guardians for their assistance. For this activity, I want you to record yourself while performing and you may submit your output via online using Messenger, Facebook, or Instagram with your teacher. Again, observe health protocols at all times. If you have queries or you need some clarifications, feel free to call or message your teacher. You did a very good job. I know you have understood the lesson well, and I believe you are ready for the next lesson. In behalf of Mom Princess T. Pascua, our scriptwriter, and our team in Radyo Eskwela sa Isabela, I would like to thank you for tuning in and staying with me until the very end. But before I end our session, I want you to understand by heart that because pork has a mild taste and similar to chicken, is something of a blank slate for any type of flavor profile. It is a meat that can benefit from a good marinade. Pork can take on the character of the cuisines of the Caribbean, Asia, and South America, or become a simple weeknight meal with subtle flavors from a marinade of vinegar and mustard. Again, this is Teacher Catherine Joyce Lactao Cristobal, your Cookery NC2 teacher. See you next session! Keep safe, everyone! Bye!
Ayun na, ayun na, ayun na, sa Radyo Eskwela. Ayun na, ayun na, ayun na, sa Radyo Eskwela.
Tayo na!
Patuloy ang edukasyon para sa ating henerasyon. Sa daan ng pagkatuto ay walang may iwan. Kaya halina sa Radyo Eskwela!